Welcome back to the Love and Relationship Lab. 7 signs you're a highly attractive man and you don't even know it. Inspired by Carl Jung. There is a strange kind of power that cannot be purchased, rehearsed, or imitated. It doesn't announce itself with loud words or flashy displays. It enters quietly. It walks into a room without asking for permission. Yet somehow, people notice. Some stare with curiosity. Some become unusually nervous. Others suddenly seem eager to impress you, even though you never asked them to. If you've ever experienced this without understanding why, today's video may change the way you see yourself forever. This video is inspired by the psychological ideas of Carl Jung and explores the deeper forces behind attraction, authenticity, and human behavior. Modern society tells men that attractiveness comes from money, muscles, status, expensive clothes, or social media popularity. While these things can influence first impressions, they rarely explain why certain men leave unforgettable impressions long after they've gone. Jung believed that human beings constantly react to unconscious forces they barely understand. We don't simply respond to appearances. We respond to energy, authenticity, and psychological depth. Perhaps the greatest mistake many men make is assuming their value depends on what they own. In reality, the most attractive men often possess something invisible: presence, a quiet certainty, a calm confidence that doesn't beg for attention. Ironically, these men usually don't realize they have it, because genuine confidence rarely looks confident to the person experiencing it. It simply feels natural. Today we'll explore 7 signs that may reveal you're far more attractive than you've ever believed. Not attractive in the shallow sense, but attractive in the deeper, psychological sense that Carl Jung spent his life trying to understand. Let's begin. Sign number 1. People react to you before they know you. Have you ever noticed that strangers often form strong opinions about you almost immediately? Some like you instantly. Others seem strangely uncomfortable. A few become defensive for no obvious reason. Why? Because human beings are constantly projecting unconscious expectations onto others. Carl Jung called this projection. Projection occurs when people attribute parts of themselves to someone else. A secure person may see confidence. An insecure person may see arrogance. Someone longing for connection may see mystery. Someone afraid of rejection may assume you're judging them. Notice something important. None of these reactions necessarily have anything to do with you. They reveal far more about the observer than the observed. Highly attractive men often become psychological mirrors. Their calm presence forces others to confront themselves. That's why conversations sometimes become strangely emotional around you. People confess secrets, share painful memories, reveal vulnerabilities they normally hide. It's as though something about your presence gives them permission to remove their masks. You didn't ask for this. You simply created enough. Psychological safety or enough. Psychological tension for their unconscious. to emerge. This isn't manipulation. It's authenticity. Authenticity has a strange effect. It quietly exposes pretension. And in a world built upon carefully managed appearances, authenticity becomes extraordinarily magnetic. Not because it's loud, but because it's rare. Sign number 2. Your silence speaks louder than other people's words. Many men believe they must constantly entertain, always talking, always joking, always proving themselves. But truly attractive men understand something different. Silence is not emptiness. Silence communicates certainty. Notice the people who constantly explain themselves, who defend every decision, who seek endless reassurance. Behind excessive explanation often hides uncertainty. Meanwhile, a grounded man doesn't feel compelled to convince everyone. He answers calmly. He listens carefully. He speaks when something meaningful needs to be said. Carl Jung believed that psychological maturity comes from integration, not performance. An integrated man doesn't need to dominate every conversation. He knows his value isn't determined by how much attention he receives. Ironically, this makes people pay even more attention. Have you ever entered a conversation intending to stay quiet, only to discover everyone kept looking toward you, waiting for your opinion, watching your reactions? That's because presence often outweighs volume. People instinctively recognize emotional stability, and emotional stability has become increasingly rare. When someone remains calm while everyone else competes for attention, the room notices. Without realizing it, others begin adjusting themselves around that person. This creates what psychologists sometimes call a gravitational presence. Not because the man demands attention, but because attention naturally flows toward emotional certainty. This is why your silence may sometimes feel louder than someone else's speech. People become curious. What is he thinking? Why isn't he trying to impress anyone? Why does he seem so comfortable? Curiosity becomes attraction. Not because you're performing mystery, but because you're comfortable enough not to manufacture it. There's a profound difference. One is manipulation. The other is authenticity. People unconsciously sense the difference, and authenticity almost always wins. But here's where things become even more fascinating. The deeper your authenticity grows, the more intense other people's reactions become. Some will admire you. Some will envy you. Others won't understand you at all. Why? Because authenticity doesn't simply attract admiration. It exposes insecurity. But now we move deeper. This is where attraction stops being about appearance and begins revealing something far more profound. Carl Jung believed that much of human behavior is driven by unconscious forces. People don't simply respond to what they see. They respond to what they feel, often without understanding why. That is why some of the most attractive men spend years doubting themselves. Their influence isn't loud enough to notice consciously, but it's powerful enough for everyone else to feel. Sign number 3. People project their stories onto you. Have you ever noticed that people assume things about you that are completely untrue? Some think you're extremely confident. Others assume you're arrogant. Some believe you're mysterious. Others think you're intimidating. What's fascinating is that these opinions often contradict each other. How can one person see kindness while another sees coldness? Carl Jung offered an explanation. Projection. People rarely see you exactly as you are. Instead, they see you through the lens of their own fears, desires, and unresolved emotions. If someone desperately seeks security, they may see you as someone who could protect them. If another struggles with insecurity, they may view your calmness as superiority. Neither perception necessarily reflects reality. It reflects them. Highly attractive men unknowingly become emotional canvases upon which other people paint their own unconscious stories. This explains why strangers sometimes trust you almost immediately. It also explains why others dislike you without any logical reason. Neither reaction is entirely about you. Your presence simply awakens something already living inside them. That can feel confusing. You may spend years wondering why people react so strongly. The answer is simple. Depth invites projection, and the deeper your authenticity becomes, the stronger those projections often become. Sign number 4. You attract jealousy without seeking attention. Most people believe jealousy follows success, money, status, luxury, recognition. Sometimes it does, but often jealousy appears long before any of those things. Why? Because confidence threatens comparison. A man who seems comfortable in his own skin quietly reminds others of the peace they haven't yet found. You don't have to brag. You don't have to compete. Simply refusing to seek approval can make insecure people uncomfortable. Imagine two men entering the same room. One spends the evening trying desperately to impress everyone. The other enjoys conversations, listens carefully, smiles naturally, and leaves without worrying what anyone thinks. Which man appears freer? Freedom itself is attractive, not because it dominates others, because it cannot be controlled. Carl Jung believed that whatever people reject within themselves often appears outside them as irritation. Sometimes what they call arrogance is simply independence. Sometimes what they call coldness is emotional stability. Sometimes what they criticize is actually the courage they wish they possessed. This is why attractive men often become unexpected targets, not because they've done anything wrong, but because they remind others of possibilities they haven't embraced. Understanding this changes everything. Instead of taking unnecessary criticism personally, you begin recognizing that not every emotional reaction belongs to you. Some belongs entirely to the person experiencing it. That realization is incredibly freeing. Sign number 5. People remember you long after you've left. Some people dominate a room while they're present. Then everyone forgets them. Others barely speak. Yet days later, people are still talking about them. Why? Because true presence leaves emotional fingerprints. Carl Jung often emphasized that meaningful encounters affect the unconscious. Sometimes A brief conversation changes someone more than hours of ordinary discussion. Perhaps you've experienced this yourself. Someone messages you months later saying, "I've been thinking about something you told me," or "I never forgot our conversation." You may struggle to remember saying anything extraordinary. That's precisely the point. Highly attractive men don't always recognize their own influence because authenticity feels ordinary from the inside. You aren't trying to inspire anyone. You're simply being yourself. Yet your honesty stays with people. Your calmness stays with people. Your way of listening stays with people. Even your eye contact may communicate something words never could. Presence isn't measured by how loudly someone speaks. It's measured by how deeply they're remembered. Many men chase attention. Few cultivate presence. Attention disappears quickly. Presence lingers. It echoes like the final note of beautiful music long after the instrument becomes silent. That's the difference. People don't always remember your appearance. They remember how they felt around you, and feelings create memories far stronger than appearances ever can. There is, however, a hidden cost to all of this. If people constantly project onto you, if your presence naturally draws attention, if you're remembered long after you've gone, life doesn't necessarily become easier. Sometimes it becomes lonelier, because very few people actually see you beneath their assumptions. Carl Jung warned that authenticity often separates us from the crowd before it connects us to the right people. Many highly attractive men mistake this loneliness for failure. In reality, it is often evidence that they're no longer living behind a mask. Highly attractive men don't always recognize their own influence because authenticity feels ordinary from the inside. You aren't trying to inspire anyone. You're simply being yourself. Yet your honesty stays with people. Your calmness stays with people. Your way of listening stays with people. Even your eye contact may communicate something words never could. Presence isn't measured by how loudly someone speaks. It's measured by how deeply they're remembered. Many men chase attention. Few cultivate presence. Attention disappears quickly. Presence lingers. It echoes like the final note of beautiful music long after the instrument becomes silent. That's the difference. People don't always remember your appearance. They remember how they felt around you, and feelings create memories far stronger than appearances ever can. There is, however, a hidden cost to all of this. If people constantly project onto you, if your presence naturally draws attention, if you're remembered long after you've gone, life doesn't necessarily become easier. Sometimes it becomes lonelier, because very few people actually see you beneath their assumptions. Carl Jung warned that authenticity often separates us from the crowd before it connects us to the right people. Many highly attractive men mistake this loneliness for failure. In reality, it is often evidence that they're no longer living behind a mask. There's an unmistakable peace that comes from this. You walk into rooms without trying to prove your worth. You speak without rehearsing every sentence in your mind. You stop comparing your life to everyone else's highlight reel. You celebrate others without feeling diminished. You accept rejection without believing it defines you. You stop performing. You simply become. And that quiet confidence is extraordinarily compelling. Why? Because it cannot be manipulated. People who crave validation are easily controlled. Offer them praise, and they follow. Offer them criticism, and they shrink. But a man grounded in his own values remains steady through both. That stability creates trust. It creates respect. And yes, it creates attraction. Not because he's perfect, but because he's genuine. As we close this journey, it's important to remember something. These 7 signs are not a checklist designed to inflate the ego. In fact, Carl Jung warned repeatedly about identifying with grand ideas about ourselves. The goal isn't to believe you're better than anyone else. The goal is to become more fully yourself. Real attractiveness isn't superiority. It isn't dominance. It isn't being admired by everyone. It's integrity. It's the quiet alignment between who you are inside and how you live outside. The world often teaches men to build an impressive image. Jung encouraged something much harder. Build your character. Images eventually fade. Character deepens. Your appearance may capture someone's attention, but your character determines whether they remember you. So, if today's video has shown you anything, let it be this. Stop trying to become someone impressive. Become someone authentic. Stop measuring yourself by comparisons. Measure yourself by growth. Stop asking whether you're attractive enough. Start asking whether you're becoming more honest, more courageous, more compassionate, and more aligned with your deepest values, because the most magnetic men aren't those who have everything. They're the ones who have stopped pretending to be someone they're not. That is real confidence. That is real freedom. And perhaps that is what Carl Jung hoped every individual would. Eventually discover that beneath every mask, every insecurity, and every expectation placed upon us lies a self that has been waiting patiently to emerge. The world doesn't need another man performing confidence. It needs more men living with authenticity. If you become one of those men, you'll discover something remarkable. You won't need to convince people of your worth. Your life will quietly demonstrate it. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. If this video gave you a new perspective on yourself or someone you know, take a moment to share it with someone who might need to hear these words. And if you're passionate about psychology, relationships, personal growth, and timeless wisdom inspired by great thinkers like Carl Jung, don't forget to subscribe to the Love and Relationship Lab. Join our growing community where psychology, science, experience, and love come together to help you build stronger relationships and a stronger sense of self. Until next time, remember this: the strongest presence is never the loudest. It is the one that remains true to itself, even when no one is watching.